The night was silent. The desert stretched endlessly under a dark sky full of stars. A small streak of light cut across the heavens, growing brighter every second. Then boom! A ship crashed into the sand, sending a wave of fire and dust into the air. When the smoke cleared, only a broken piece of metal remained, half buried in the golden dunes. Inside that wreck, something moved. Slowly, the door opened and a figure stepped out. He looked almost human, but not quite. His skin had a faint silver glow under the moonlight. His eyes were bright and sharp, like liquid metal. His name was Kale, and he was not from Earth. Kale fell to his knees, coughing. The crash had torn his ship apart. His left arm sparked with blue light. Part of his armor was fused into his skin. He pressed a button on his wrist and heard a soft female voice from his damaged AI unit. Status critical. Energy levels 3%. Communication offline. You are the last of your kind, Kale. Kyle closed his eyes. The words cut deep. The last of his kind. He had known it already, but hearing it again from the AI made the truth heavier. His planet was gone, burned in a war started by fear and greed. The humans had called it a necessary victory. For Kale's people it was extinction. He looked up at the night sky. So many stars, but none of them were home. "Why save me?" he whispered. "Why let me live when everyone else is gone?" The AI did not answer. It never understood sorrow. Machines couldn't. Kyle tried to stand, but his leg was hurt. He dragged himself back to the wreck and pulled out a small silver cube, the only working part of his ship's core. It pulsed faintly like a dying heartbeat. "If I can fix this, maybe I can send a signal," he said softly. "Maybe someone will hear me," but deep inside he knew no one would. He had drifted too far. Hours passed. The desert grew colder. Kale built a small shelter beside the ship, using broken panels as walls. He stared at the glowing cube in his hand, watching it flicker. Each flicker was weaker than before. He thought about his people, the laughter of his friends, the gentle voice of his sister, the music that once filled his city. All gone, burned to ash. A tear rolled down his cheek. Glowing faintly in the moonlight, he whispered again, almost to himself. "Hope is a cruel thing." Then he heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Slow. Coming closer. Kyle froze. His instincts came alive. He grabbed his weapon, a small plasma pistol, though it barely had power left. He aimed toward the sound. The footsteps stopped. Silence again. Only the wind moving through the dunes. Kyle waited, breathing quietly. Then he saw it, a light, a faint yellow glow moving behind a sandhill. Someone was there, human. He crouched low, ready to defend himself. He had read enough about humans from old reports. They feared what they didn't understand. If they saw him, they would call him a monster. The light came closer. A lantern. A human figure appeared, wearing a dusty coat and a scarf around her neck. It was a woman. Her face looked tired but kind. She moved carefully, scanning the ground as if searching for something. Maybe she had seen the crash from far away. Kyle stayed hidden behind a broken wing of his ship, watching her. The woman knelt near a piece of glowing metal. "What is this?" she murmured. Her voice was soft, curious. She touched the surface, and the metal hummed gently under her hand. Kyle's weapon trembled slightly. He wanted to tell her to leave, but his throat was dry. His heart raced. If she saw him, what would she do? The AI whispered in his ear, "Warning! Unknown life form detected. Possible threat," Kale muttered. "She's just human." "Let me think." The woman took a few more steps, then gasped. She had found his footprints in the sand. She followed them slowly, shining her light ahead. Kyle could feel his pulse in his ears. He lifted his weapon higher, ready to scare her away. Then his leg gave out. He fell, landing hard on the sand. The noise echoed. The woman turned instantly toward the sound. "Hello, is someone there?" Kyle crawled backward, but his body was weak. He pressed his weapon against his chest, waiting. The woman's light found him. Her eyes widened as she saw his face. Half human, half something else. She didn't scream. She just stared, frozen. Kale's voice came out rough, almost broken. "Stay back." The woman didn't move. Instead, she knelt slowly, setting the lantern down. "You're hurt," she said softly. "Let me help you." Kyle blinked, confused. "Help me?" "Yes," she said. "You'll die out here alone." For a moment, The alien warrior, the last survivor of a destroyed world, felt something strange. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was kindness. But he didn't understand it. The wind blew between them, carrying the silence of two different worlds. Kyle's weapon dropped slightly. His voice trembled. "You don't even know what I am." The woman looked into his silver eyes and replied, "I don't need to know. You're alive. That's enough." For the first time since his planet died, Kyle felt something stir inside him, a small spark. A tiny, fragile thing he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. But before he could speak again, his ship made a sudden noise, an alarm. The AI spoke fast. "Multiple life signals approaching. Human vehicles detected." Kyle's face turned pale. He looked at the woman. "You should leave." "They'll come for me." The woman shook her head. "Then I'll stay." The desert wind howled around them, and the night seemed to hold its breath. The alien and the human stood together beside the broken ship, unaware that their meeting would change the fate of both their worlds. The night wind was cold across the desert. The stars were still burning bright above them when the human woman stepped closer to the injured alien. Kyle tried to move back, but his leg hurt too much. The pain made his vision blur. The strange woman stopped when she saw him struggle. Her eyes were full of worry, not fear. "My name is Mara," she said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." Kyle said nothing. He kept his weapon pointed at her, but his hand was shaking. Mara slowly lifted her hands to show she had no weapon. "I saw the light in the sky," she explained. "I thought it was a meteor. But when I came closer, I found this." Her eyes moved over the broken ship behind him. "You?" Kyle stared at her. Her voice was calm, honest. He could sense no threat, only curiosity. The AI inside his ear spoke quietly. "Caution advised." "Human intentions unknown," Kyle muttered back. "I know, but she doesn't seem like the others." Mara took a few steps forward. "You're hurt," she said again. "Please let me help." "I'm a scientist. I can treat wounds," Kyle hesitated. His plasma pistol was nearly dead. He couldn't defend himself much longer. Finally, he lowered the weapon. "Fine," he said softly. But no sudden moves. Mara nodded and came closer. She took a small flashlight from her pocket and looked at his arm. The armor had melted into his skin, and strange silver blood was leaking through the cracks. Mara frowned. This isn't normal." Kyle gave a weak smile. "Nothing about me is." She cleaned the wound carefully, wrapping it with part of her scarf. The silver blood shimmered like light trapped in water. She wanted to ask questions, but she could see how tired he was. "Thank you," Kyle whispered. "You're welcome," Mara replied gently. "You should rest." "I can't," Kyle said. "Your people." "They will come." "My people?" "Humans," Kyle said bitterly. "They'll track the crash. They'll find me, and they'll kill me if they know what I am." Mara looked at him with confusion. "You think we'd kill you?" Kale's voice turned hard. "I don't think." "I know." The wind blew across the sand, and for a long moment neither spoke. Finally, Mara said quietly, "I don't know what happened to you, or why you hate humans. But I promise I won't tell anyone." Kyle looked at her, trying to believe her words. In his world, trust had become a rare thing. Still, there was something in her eyes, something that reminded him of a memory long buried. His sister smiling at him before their world burned. The same kindness, the same light. He looked down. "Your kindness. It's dangerous," he said. "Maybe," Mara replied. "But sometimes the dangerous thing is the right thing." Kyle didn't understand her, not completely, but he could feel that her words came from a good place. Hours later, inside Mara's small research tent, Kyle sat quietly while she studied a piece of his broken ship. Her camp was filled with strange human tools, computers, scanners, and glass jars filled with desert stones. Mara poured him a cup of water. "You should drink." Kyle looked at it suspiciously. "Is it safe?" Mara laughed softly. "It's just water. You'll like it." He drank, and for a second he felt human. "Why are you here?" he asked her. "I study rocks and minerals," she said. "I live alone here for my research. I didn't expect to find—" She paused. "Someone like you." Kale looked down at the silver cube in his hand, the last working part of his ship. "I'm looking for something too," he said quietly. "A signal. A way to reach my home." "Your home," Mara repeated. "Where is it?" Kale looked out the tent flap toward the sky. Gone, burned, lost, Mara didn't ask more. She could feel his pain without needing words. For a long time there was silence between them. The desert wind brushed against the tent. The sound was almost peaceful. Then, suddenly, the cube in Kyle's hand began to glow brighter. He looked at it, surprised. Mara leaned closer. "What's that?" "A memory core," Kyle explained. "It holds the last voices of my people." He pressed the cube, and a soft projection filled the tent. A group of silver-eyed beings, smiling, laughing, standing under blue skies. Mara gasped. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. Kyle watched the images with a heavy heart. "They were my family," he said. "They are gone now." Mara looked at him and whispered, "I'm sorry." Kyle nodded slowly. "Humans did this. Your armies came to our world. They said we were dangerous. They destroyed everything." Mara lowered her eyes. "That was before my time." "I never knew." "I know," Kyle said softly. "But history doesn't forget." There was silence again, filled only by the faint hum of the cube. After a while, Mara spoke again. "Maybe not all humans are the same," she said. "Maybe you just met the wrong ones." Kyle looked at her, his silver eyes reflecting the flickering light. "And what kind are you?" She smiled gently. "The kind who doesn't walk away when someone needs help." Kyle didn't reply, but a faint warmth grew in his chest, something he hadn't felt for a long time. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Storm clouds gathered, dark and heavy. Mara stood up and checked the radar screen. "Strange," she said. "I'm getting a signal from the crash site." Kyle's expression changed instantly. "They found me." Mara turned toward him. "Who?" "Your people," Kyle said, his voice tense. "Government agents, soldiers, they'll come here." Mara's heart raced. "Then we have to hide you." Kyle stood weakly, gripping the edge of the table. "You don't understand. If they find me, they won't just take me. They'll take you too." Mara looked at him, her voice firm. "Then we'll run." Kyle stared at her, shocked by her courage. "You would run for me?" "Yes," she said simply. "No one deserves to die alone." For a moment, Kyle had no words. The storm outside began to rage, lightning flashing across the sky. The desert winds screamed like ghosts. Mara turned off the lights and whispered, "We have to move before they arrive." Kyle nodded slowly. His heart beat faster, not only from fear, but from something far more dangerous. Trust. And as they stepped out into the dark storm, Kyle knew this human would change everything. The storm raged through the desert all night. Lightning flashed across the dark sky as wind tore through the dunes. Mara led Kyle through the storm, her flashlight barely cutting through the dust. They reached a small cave hidden between two rocky cliffs. It was dry inside, warm compared to the cold air outside. Kyle sat down heavily against the wall, breathing hard. His wounds glowed faintly in the dim light. Mara dropped her bag beside him and sat down too. She was tired, covered in sand, but she didn't complain. She looked at him, her eyes full of concern. "Are you okay?" she asked. Kyle nodded weakly. "I'll survive." "I always do." He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mara looked at him quietly. "You said my people destroyed your world. I want to understand. Tell me what really happened." Kyle looked down at the sand beneath his hands. For a long time he didn't speak. The storm outside echoed the pain inside his heart. Finally his voice came, low and heavy. "My people were called the Illyrians. We lived far from this part of space, on a blue and silver planet named Thyra. It was peaceful once. We believed in creation, not war. We built cities that floated above oceans. We learned to heal with light, to power ships with the energy of our stars." He paused, eyes lost in memory. "Then humans came. Explorers, soldiers, scientists. At first they said they came in peace. They wanted to trade knowledge. We trusted them." Mara's hands tightened around her knees. She said nothing. "But it didn't last," Kale continued. "The humans wanted our energy sources. They wanted our technology. When we refused, they called us dangerous. They said we were planning to attack them." He looked up at her, his silver eyes full of pain. "They came with fire. Bombs that burned our cities, weapons that poisoned our air. I watched the sky turn red as everything we loved vanished." Mara's heart ached. That can't be true. "Not all humans." Kyle stopped her with a soft shake of his head. "Maybe not all. But enough. Enough to end a world." The cave was silent except for the sound of rain outside. Mara looked at the floor, ashamed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what they did?" Kale nodded slowly. "I don't blame you, Mara. You didn't pull the trigger. But it's hard to forget the sound of a dying planet." Mara took a deep breath. "And you survived." "Barely," Kyle said. "I was a pilot in the Peace Fleet. My ship was far from the main battle when the planet fell. When I returned, there was nothing left. I searched for survivors, but all I found were ruins and silence." He looked away, his voice breaking. "For years I drifted through space, sending signals, calling into the dark. No one answered. Eventually my ship broke down. I crash-landed here." Mara felt tears in her eyes. She couldn't imagine such loneliness. "You've been alone for so long," she said softly. Kyle nodded. "I stopped counting the years." Mara reached out slowly, her hand resting on his arm. "You're not alone anymore." Kyle looked at her hand. It was warm, human warmth, something he hadn't felt since before the war. For a moment neither moved. The storm began to calm outside. Then Kyle's AI voice spoke in his ear, sharp and cold. "Warning, human contact detected. Emotional interference risk high." Kyle frowned. "Interference. She's helping me." "Correction," the AI said. "Human emotions are unpredictable. Past patterns show they lead to betrayal." Kale whispered back. "She's different." The AI paused. "Statement not supported by data." Kyle ignored it. He looked at Mara again. "You should rest. They'll start searching at sunrise." Mara nodded, but her mind was spinning. What he had told her? It changed everything she believed about her own world. She leaned against the wall watching him as he adjusted a small glowing cube. The same memory core she'd seen before. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trying to repair my beacon," Kyle said. "If I can power it again, maybe I can reach any old Illyrian satellites still drifting out there." Mara smiled faintly. "You still hope someone's left?" Kale looked up, his voice soft. "Hope is all I have." Mara watched him in silence. She realized something then. Beneath the alien armor, the strange eyes and the silver blood, Kyle wasn't a monster. He was just lost. The fire between them flickered, throwing light across the walls of the cave. Suddenly, Mara's communicator beeped. She pulled it out of her pocket. A red signal flashed across the screen. Her face went pale. "Oh no!" Kyle turned quickly. "What is it?" "They've tracked me," Mara said. "They found the research camp. They'll come here next." Kale stood, his wounds forgotten. "We must move now." "But you're hurt." "I've been through worse," he said. "We can't let them find us together." Mara grabbed her bag and nodded. "Then where do we go?" Kyle looked toward the distant horizon through the cave's narrow opening. The clouds had begun to part, showing the faint light of dawn. "There's an old human bunker I saw when I crashed," he said. "If we reach it before sunrise, maybe we can hide inside." Mara looked at him, her heart pounding. "Let's go." As they stepped out into the soft morning light, Kyle felt the AI whisper again. "This human will be your undoing." But Kale only smiled faintly. "Maybe," he said quietly. "Or maybe she'll be my salvation." They walked together into the breaking dawn, an alien haunted by the past, and a human searching for truth, both unaware that their story was only beginning. The sun was rising, painting the desert in shades of red and gold. Kyle and Mara moved quickly through the rocky hills, their footprints fading behind them in the sand. The air was still too quiet, as if the desert was holding its breath. Kale walked slightly ahead, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. His armor was cracked and his movements were slower now. The pain in his leg had returned, but he didn't stop. Mara followed close, carrying her small research bag against her chest. Inside it was Kale's glowing cube, the only thing he had left from his world. "Are you sure this bunker is real?" she asked, panting. Kyle nodded. "It's old, human-made. My scanners picked it up before my ship crashed. If it still stands, it might hide us for a while." Behind them, in the distance, a low rumble echoed through the air, the sound of engines. Mara turned, her eyes wide. "They're coming." Kyle's face hardened. "We have to move faster." The sand crunched beneath their boots as they hurried down a slope. Small drones appeared in the sky, shining blue searchlights over the desert. Kyle stopped and aimed his broken weapon at one of them. The shot flickered weakly, but it was enough to hit the drone. It exploded in a flash of light. The sound carried far. Now the rest of the drones turned toward them. "Run!" Kale shouted. They sprinted through the sand as the desert came alive with sound. Engines, rotors, voices on loudspeakers. Mara's heart pounded in her chest. She had never been hunted before. A bullet of plasma struck the ground beside her, spraying sand into the air. Kyle grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a rocky wall. "Stay low," he whispered. "They can't see us here." Mara looked at him, breathing fast. "They'll kill you if they find you." Kyle smiled bitterly. "They'll try." He peeked around the rock, watching the drones hover closer. His AI spoke in his ear. "Enemy distance 600 meters. Evasion unlikely." "Recommend surrender," Kyle muttered. "Not this time." He looked at Mara. "You helped me when I was dying. Now I help you." Before she could protest, he pressed a button on his armor. A faint blue light spread across the rocks. "A cloaking field," Mara gasped. "What is that?" "Old Illyrian tech," Kyle said. "It bends light. They won't see us for long, but it will give us a head start." They ran again, invisible shadows moving across the desert. Minutes felt like hours. Every step burned with exhaustion. Kale's breathing grew heavy. His armor's power was almost gone. Finally, they saw it. A dark opening built into a cliffside. The bunker. Mara smiled through her exhaustion. "We made it!" Kyle nodded, but his eyes narrowed. "Not yet. Go inside quickly." Mara crawled through the opening while Kale stayed outside, scanning the horizon one last time. He saw the ships, dark shapes approaching fast. He turned and sealed the bunker door behind him, just as the sound of engines filled the air above. Inside it was silent. The air smelled of dust and metal. The bunker was old, but the light still flickered faintly on the walls. Mara dropped her bag and turned to Kyle. "They'll search the whole area. How long can we hide here?" Kyle checked his wrist display. "If they don't scan too deep, maybe a few hours." Mara sat down against the wall, her body trembling from exhaustion. "I can't believe this is happening." Kale looked at her quietly. "Believe it. Your people have always feared what they don't understand." Mara looked up at him. "You still think I'm like them?" Kale hesitated. He saw the dust on her face, the fear in her eyes. Not for herself, but for him. "No," he said softly. "You're different." For a moment they just looked at each other. Then a loud boom shook the bunker. The ground trembled. Mara gasped. "They found us." Kyle stood and aimed his weapon at the door, even though it barely had power left. "Get behind me." The metal door glowed red as soldiers outside began to cut through it. Sparks flew across the floor. Kyle clenched his jaw. There's only one way out. He reached into his belt and pulled out a small round device glowing with white light. "What's that?" Mara asked. "The jump core," Kale said. "It can teleport us, but only once and only a short distance. After that it burns out." Mara's eyes widened. "Teleport? To where?" Kyle looked at her, his voice quiet. "Anywhere but here." The door burst open behind them. Soldiers in black armor rushed in, shouting orders. Blue lights filled the room. "Freeze!" one of them yelled. "Hands up!" Kyle grabbed Mara's hand tightly. "Do you trust me?" he whispered. Mara nodded without hesitation. "Yes." Kyle pressed the jump core. A blinding white light filled the room, swallowing everything. The soldiers, the sound, the fear. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the light faded. They were gone. The world around them changed. The desert had vanished. The air felt different, clean, soft, filled with strange glowing mist. They stood on a high cliff under a sky of blue and silver light. Mara looked around in awe. Where are we?" Kyle stared at the horizon. His eyes shimmered. "This is not Earth," he said softly. "This is something else." Mara turned toward him. "Did you bring us here?" Kale looked at the jump core in his hand. It was cracked, its light fading. "No," he said. "It wasn't me." They stood together, surrounded by a strange, quiet world that seemed alive with light. Kale turned to Mara. "Whatever this place is," he said, "we might not be alone." And far away among the glowing clouds, a shape moved, watching them. For a long time, Kale and Mara stood in silence, trying to understand where they were. The air around them shimmered softly, filled with tiny lights that floated like dust made of stars. The ground glowed faintly under their feet, warm and smooth like glass. Mara looked around, amazed. "This place?" "It's beautiful," she whispered. Kyle nodded slowly. His silver eyes reflected the glowing sky. "It feels familiar," he said, "like home." The wind that brushed against them was gentle, carrying a faint melody, soft, almost like voices. Cale took a step forward, listening. His heart pounded. "This world," he said quietly. "It's using the same energy as my people once did. The Illyrian core. It shouldn't exist here," Mara looked at him. "Then how did we end up here?" Kyle lifted the broken jump core in his hand. Its light flickered weakly. "It must have reacted with my ship's memory core," he said. "It brought us to the coordinates my people used for terraforming experiments long ago. So this is an Illyrian world?" Cale hesitated. "Maybe, or what's left of one." They began to walk. The land stretched endlessly ahead, rolling hills of glowing grass, trees made of crystal branches, rivers that shimmered like liquid light. Above them, 2 moons floated side by side. Mara's eyes widened with every step. "Your people made this?" Kyle smiled faintly. "Once. Long ago we built worlds like this to bring life to empty planets. I never thought I'd see one again." As they walked further, they reached a wide valley. In the distance stood ruins, tall, elegant towers half buried in the glowing soil. Kyle's steps slowed. His breath caught. "Those buildings, they're Illyrian." He walked forward, almost trembling. His fingers brushed against one of the ruined walls. The surface was cold and smooth, still humming with faint energy. Mara followed him quietly. "Kyle," he closed his eyes. "My people were here," he whispered. "Maybe they survived longer than I thought." Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. The wall lit up under his touch, spreading lines of silver light across the stone. Mara stepped back in surprise. "What's happening?" Kyle looked at the wall, his eyes wide. "It's responding to my genetic code. It still recognizes me." The ground beneath them vibrated softly, and from the center of the ruins a pillar of light shot into the sky. Holographic images appeared all around. Illyrian faces, voices speaking in a soft, musical language. Kyle dropped to his knees. His hands shook. "It's them," he whispered. "My people. Their memories are here." Mara knelt beside him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Kyle, it's like they left a part of themselves behind." He nodded slowly, tears forming in his glowing eyes. "They built this place as a seed of hope, a place where Illyrian life could start again. If ever one of us survived," he looked at her. "I thought I was the last, but maybe not anymore." The lights around them changed, spreading warmth and color through the valley. Flowers began to bloom where there had been only glowing soil. Trees grew taller, their branches reaching toward the moons. Mara stood staring in awe. "It's alive," she said. "The planet's waking up." Kyle smiled, his voice breaking. "It's responding to my presence. My DNA is reactivating its systems." He looked at her. "This world, it's beginning again." For the first time in years, Cale felt something stronger than pain, stronger than loneliness. He felt hope, real, living hope. Mara turned toward him, smiling. "Then you did it, Cale. You found your home again." Cale looked at her for a long moment. "I didn't find it alone," he said softly. She smiled shyly. "I just followed a falling star." They both laughed, quietly at first, then freely. The sound echoed through the valley, blending with the soft music of the wind. As they stood together under the glowing sky, the AI's voice came from Kyle's wrist. Softer now, almost gentle. "Illyrian life signature detected. Atmosphere stable. Growth rate increasing. Probability of long-term survival, 92%. Kyle looked at the small display. "We have a future here," he said. Mara looked at him, then at the living world around them. "Maybe not just Illyrians," she said. "Maybe both of us together." Kyle nodded slowly. "Then we start again, human and Illyrian. No more war. No more hate." He reached out his hand. "Will you help me rebuild this world, Mara?" She took his hand without hesitation. "Always." For a long moment they stood together, hand in hand, watching the new sunrise paint the valley in gold and silver. The last survivor of a lost world had found something greater than survival. He had found love. He had found peace. He had found a beginning. As the wind whispered through the growing trees, Kyle spoke softly, almost to himself. "Sometimes the greatest discovery isn't found among the stars." Mara looked at him, her eyes warm. "It's found in the heart," Kyle smiled. "Yes, in the most unexpected, human. The camera of imagination would pull back now, showing the two small figures standing in the heart of a reborn world, surrounded by light and life as the sky filled with glowing clouds and distant stars. The last words lingered like an echo in the air. Hope never truly dies. It only waits for someone brave enough to believe again.